There you are, no mai haramai. As the thumbnail suggests, today we're going to be diving into my watch list. That includes 2 New York Stock Exchange shares and 2 NZX shares. This video will give you an idea on how I operate my research before investing and why I am watching them. If you do find value in this video, leave a comment in the section below with other stocks that you're watching and why you're watching them, and they may appear in future videos. We can all agree that most find investing boring. Not me. And exploiting people's patience have made fortunes for many companies with the BNPL culture. You can Google that after this video. My long-term investing strategy means I won't see the fruits of my labor until about 10 years time, by which I hope to have 8 subscribers. Kiwi Wealth Creation. I'm here to educate and entertain likewise investors. With that being said, any information on this channel cannot consider your individual circumstances. You should seek advice from a financial advisor. Getting straight into the fight, we have the modern day Nokia tech giant that is Apple. The first reason this share is on my watch list is because I am a consumer. One of Warren Buffett's investing principles is to invest in industries or companies that you are familiar with. Every day I use my Mac, my iPhone and AirPods. I understand the product, I appreciate the product, I buy more of the product. If it works, well, you know the rest. Secondly, Apple just released they will be completing a 4-way split. This has been done before. Apple stock has split 4 times since the company went public. The stock split on a 7-for-1 basis on June 9, 2014, and split on a 2-for-1 basis on February 28, 2005, June 21, 2000, and June 16, 1987. You may be wondering, why do a split? How does this benefit Apple? Or maybe you're an Apple shareholder and need to know how this impacts you. Well, here it is. Drum roll, please. It doesn't affect you at all. If you are a shareholder at a share price, well, let's round down, of $400, this will be sliced into 4 shares, with each share being valued at $100. However, instead of you owning 1 share, you'll simply own 4 shares, and the value of your Apple investment does not change. However, how this may or may not, which is speculating, encourage investors to purchase Apple shares now they're at a more affordable share price. In my last video, I reviewed the Stake app, and Stake allow you to purchase fractional shares at a 0 cost. So this will not have an impact on some investors because they have the ability to buy a quarter share now anyway. However, how this split may be more beneficial than back in 2014, 2015 or 2000 is it comes during a global pandemic. Blah. And news will promote it as a more affordable way to buy Apple stock. And because people love to be followers and not leaders, generally they will follow suit. Third and finally, Apple may be revealing iPhone 12 in an announcement scheduled in September, similar to iPhone 11 revealed on September the 10th last year and released on September the 20th, 2019. Given the events of this year, this may not be a timely release, but it does add to the mystery of the stock. Now let's move on to our second US stock, Microsoft. Now in the news you may have heard Microsoft are considering a takeover, but before we reveal who that is, let's look at their previous takeovers. In 2018, Microsoft acquired GitHub for $7.5 billion, a popular code repository service used by many developers and large companies. In 2016, Microsoft acquired LinkedIn for a modest price of $26.2 billion. LinkedIn has made gigantic strides to where they are today, and now considered the Facebook of employment. And who is the person behind these 2 takeovers and possibly the next? You guessed it, the CEO Satya Nadella. Nadella has been with Microsoft since February 2014, at which Microsoft had hit a brick wall. If we look here, Microsoft shares from 2001 virtually hadn't changed, sitting at a low 37 per share. And now growth to pre-COVID, Microsoft shares have risen from $37 to a staggering $170, which is phenomenal in a space of 6 years. And of course, the time pre-Nadella, you guessed it, the other titan that took over Microsoft was the previous stock we looked at earlier, being Apple. Now the grand reveal. Microsoft to continue discussions on potential TikTok purchase in the United States. Following a conversation between CEO and President Donald Trump, Microsoft is prepared to continue discussions to explore a purchase of TikTok in the United States. But they're not only considering the United States, talks are they're also considering Australia and our own shores here in New Zealand. In addition to the TikTok tornado, Microsoft released their financials on July 22nd, with revenue being increased by 13% and operating income increasing by 8%. Other parts of their financial media release that I found interesting was how their revenue was driven by the 47% growth in Azure. What is Azure, you may ask? Microsoft Azure is an ever-expanding set of cloud services. So a lot of businesses that now use online platforms instead of massive hard drives or massive software that they have on site, they now have the ability to store a large part of their network online on the cloud. As seen here on their website, 95% of Fortune 500 companies trust their business with Azure, and $1 billion investment per year to protect their customers from cyber threats. And just so you don't think I look at all the positives when it comes to my research, we move over to the founder, Bill Gates' investment portfolio, you will notice that he does not own or have any Microsoft shares. However, you will notice that Berkshire Hathaway, almost over half of his portfolio, does invest in most of the Fortune 500 companies. Now that concludes my analysis of the New York Stock Exchange shares, being Apple and Microsoft. If you have any additional thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. Or maybe there's other stocks there in the New York Stock Exchange that you are following. If I help fill your cup, the deal is you help fill mine as well. Now let's transport to our shores here in New Zealand. Kotahi Kai Pākehī, the first business under the microscope, is the ever faithful Mainfreight. With the strong annual performance recently announced, let's start by looking at a few of the numbers that stand out. Straight away, first and foremost, shout out to Yumpu, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I already tried to see if they were a listed stock so that I could invest, because the presentation of this report really is something special for an investor's eyes. The one number here that stands out for me is the 21.9% growth over the past 10 years. That number in itself is very attractive for investors. If we look at the CapEx, capital expenditure reduced to $80 million for 2021. So as long as the incomes do not decrease, the outgoings will be decreasing, which in effect may mean a stronger return for investors. Looking at long-term goals, and another principle from our friend Warren Buffett is, if you are going to invest in a company, act as if you're buying the entire company. So straight away, I look at their long-term goal here in 2022 to be established in 50 countries, including on the continents of Africa, South America, and Indian subcontinent. On page 28, we already see their massive diversification, which whether you're a business or whether you're an investor, you will understand how important diversity is, not only to increase gains, but also to minimize risk. So we've got continents like Europe, Asia, Australia, the Americas. They are all present, meaning that we're not putting all our eggs in the basket. And for some New Zealanders, they may not know that Mainfreight is a globally recognized company. There are a lot of numbers here on this income statement that I do find important. The number that stands out for me is an increase of almost 17% from 2019 to the 2020 financial year. Again, with my investment strategy, I always try to find flaws in a business's strategy or what their core values is, but I'll leave it to you. Looking at these last pages from 60 to 67, there is a bit of a trend here, and it does stand out like a sore thumb. So for me, when it comes back to my values and how I invest my money, it does play a huge part in whether or not I invest in a company regardless of its returns. Finally, for all those Elon Musketeers out there, we have to consider the Phoenix, Arizona-based company Nikola Motors, who have a mission to provide transport options with zero emissions, meaning trucks that are energy efficient and sustainable. similar to the Tesla model moving from a gas-based fuel to electric. This has to be considered for all transport industry companies, which would allow a further decrease in capital expenditure long term, and again to attract ethical-based investors. We have reached the final share on my watch list, and before I dive into it, full disclosure, I am currently a shareholder, and my research is not to encourage investors to invest, more so to help educate likewise Kiwis before purchasing Air New Zealand shares, or in my case, the option to either hold, sell, or buy more. During this unprecedented time, we have seen a lot of shares increase with the restrictions placed on everyone worldwide. As this is not the case for all companies, I'm very curious how Air New Zealand's financials will look come August 27th. Although it is common strategy to either buy a stock before they release their financials because you know they will be positive, it is also common for people to buy stock from struggling companies after they release their annual report as they anticipate a stock reduction and poised to purchase a share at a bargain rate. You will notice this is not a strategy long-term investors use, simply because this is a short-term solution. Air New Zealand's interim report is pre-COVID, so it is harder to make assumptions on its annual performance. But if the media has anything to indicate what the numbers will look like for all airlines, well, yeah. Another important fact about Air New Zealand that a lot of people don't know is that Air New Zealand was New Zealand's state-owned airline until 1989 and was then partially purchased by foreign investors. In 2001, the company restructured, resulting in an $885 million New Zealand government-funded equity rescue package. As you can see here, Air New Zealand has never recovered from this, with their share price unchanged in almost 20 years. Comparing that to some of the other international airlines, there is growth, or at least signs of potential growth, which Air New Zealand has failed to do so for such a long time. And with that, today's video comes to its conclusion. I find it very important to help share knowledge to likewise Kiwis, so if I was able to fill your cup, I find it fascinating to understand what you found valuable, because you do have the power to dislike this video. I wouldn't be the educator or entertainer if I wasn't able to take on board your critical or constructive feedback. So do leave a comment in the section below, subscribe for more videos to help build a community, to help educate likewise Kiwis. Until next time, thank you.